Look up at the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. This vision of divinity was crafted in 16th century Europe, a world of pale skin, flowing light hair, and Roman physiques that has been exported for centuries as the literal face of God. While this image ascended, a very different standard was codified on the ground. The one-drop rule became a legal engine in the Americas, defining anyone with any trace of African ancestry as black, effectively legislating a racial hierarchy into the bedrock of society. Subjugation relies on capturing the imagination. By colonizing the concept of the divine, the oppressor anchors their authority in the victim's own faith, making the hierarchy feel celestial rather than invented. Colonial laws and Renaissance aesthetics worked to bury the narrative of African dignity under layers of whitewashed art. However, the foundational reality of human origin remained recorded in the earth and the body. That truth survived the centuries through three unshakable witnesses: blood, bone, and book. The first witness is blood. Modern genetics traces every living person back to a single matrilineal ancestor who lived in Africa roughly 200,000 years ago. Science identifies her as Mitochondrial Eve. This model represents the DNA sequence passed strictly from mother to child. Because all human matrilines converge in one location, African ancestry is a biological fact for every human being on the planet. This map tracks the descendants of those early African populations. Every non-African community stems from migrants who carried this biological legacy out of the continent tens of thousands of years ago. This genetic reality turns the one-drop rule against itself. While the law was invented to isolate blackness as a marker of inferiority, biology reveals that same one drop is the universal thread of human existence. The lineage that colonial powers attempted to legislate away is the documented root of the entire human race, transforming a tool of subjugation into proof of African primacy. The second witness is bone and stone. Anthropologically, the historical Jesus was a first-century Galilean Jew, a man whose Middle Eastern heritage meant olive or dark skin and curly hair. Renaissance artists systematically reshaped the Messiah to align with European standards of beauty. This aesthetic choice served a political goal. It mirrored the image of divinity with the image of colonial power. Outside the reach of European empires, the true depiction of Christ remained. In Ethiopia, religious art consistently represented the mother and child with dark skin and African features for over a millennium. Early Byzantine and Syrian traditions also preserved this non-European visage. These golden panels show religious figures with dark complexions, honoring a history that predates the global export of whiteness. This massive stone obelisk in Axum reflects the architectural and spiritual strength of early African Christian kingdoms. These empires proved that the faith was indigenous to African soil long before the first European missionaries arrived. Reclaiming the Dark Christ recovers a suppressed historical reality that survived for centuries within the very regions where the faith began. The third witness is the book. In the Americas, enslavers explicitly weaponized scripture by producing a heavily redacted version known as the Slave Bible. This index illustrates the theft. Redactions removed Exodus and narratives of liberation, leaving only verses demanding obedience. Censorship also obscured the genealogies of Shem. When restored, these texts provide a direct lineage connecting ancient Near Eastern peoples to the African diaspora. In the original Genesis text, the metaphor of God forming humanity from the dust of the earth links the breath of life to the rich, dark soil of our common African origin. Restoring the omitted chapters transforms the book from a manual of control into a documented record of Black dignity and divinity. We are living through a massive unearthing of history. Modern DNA testing and historical scholarship are finally bringing these buried records into the light for millions of people. Restoring these narratives dismantles the psychological pillars of colonialism, replacing invented hierarchies with documented biological and historical evidence. This reclamation validates the unbroken lineage of the Black family, anchoring modern identity in a history of resilience that predates the colonial era. The most effective Black leaders throughout history understood this connection. They recognized that true freedom begins by reclaiming an empowered, divine origin. The African presence spans the entirety of human existence, from the first genetic lines to the earliest civilizations. This history provides the foundation for the biology of every person on Earth. The blood they feared is the blood that freed.